Theresa May's new government is barely a few days old, but there are already clues about which direction she wants to take the country. With me is Janan Ganesh, political commentator of the Financial Times. Janan, what are your initial thoughts?
The big difference, I think, in this cabinet is between the domestic jobs and then the international-facing jobs. So if you look at the domestic scene, very moderate, centre-ground, sensible people. Amber Rudd at Home Secretary, Philip Hammond as Chancellor, Justine Greening at Education, Greg Clark in this new super ministry, which deals with business, energy and industrial strategy.
Okay, we need to get to the flamboyant types.
And then you look at the other end, the international facing bit of the cabinet, and you've got Boris Johnson, who's going to be a fairly incendiary foreign secretary, judging by his early press conferences. David Davis and Liam Fox, two absolutely committed Brexiteers, leading that process and trying to negotiate trade deals. And then Priti Patel, I would guess the most right-wing cabinet member since 2010, when the Conservatives took power, dealing with foreign aid. So there's a huge gap between domestic and foreign, and it looks like Theresa May is trying to isolate the right of the party in the international bits of the cabinet.
To make those Brexiters who are going to be responsible for conducting the negotiations with the European Union on the new terms of a relationship with Europe, led by David Davis, long-time Eurosceptic. Now, it looked smart to put them in the government and make them take responsibility, but maybe there's going to be future trouble.
Yeah, I mean, if the assumption is that, well, if it goes wrong, only the Brexiteers get the blame, David Davis, Liam Fox, etc., I don't see how the Prime Minister of the day, who appointed them, can insulate herself from any political fire that causes. So if it goes badly, and I think there's reason to believe it might, we haven't even invoked Article 50 yet. Once we do, there's a 2-year...
That's the trigger for the divorce proceedings with the European Union.
Yeah, the formal negotiations. Once we trigger that, there's still a 2-year process, time limited, where the EU has, I think, the stronger hand in the negotiation. If it does go badly, and remember, David Davis hasn't done an executive ministerial job, I don't think, since the mid-1990s, when he was Europe Minister.
I remember him well in Brussels.
I think lots of
Tough
people.
man.
I think lots of people in Brussels remember him well. If it goes badly, there's no way the political damage doesn't extend to the Prime Minister. So I wonder whether she's being as clever as some people in the press have said by trying to isolate all the political controversy in the hands of a few Brexiteers.
Okay, so the positive news was that a new government in Britain was put together within the space of 3 weeks after the earthquake of the referendum result. But obviously that gave Mrs May very little time, Miss May, to put together her ideas. So do you think there are some things that maybe she didn't actually mean or that were a bit hasty?
Time will tell, but I wonder whether the opening speeches she made, especially about economic reform, maybe creating more of an industrial strategy, getting workers to be represented on corporate boards, will end up coming to not very much. I've been around long enough to remember Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, and even David Cameron and George Osborne in recent years give pretty spectacular speeches about economic reform. Then they made contact with reality, found it wasn't so doable, or it made the economy uncompetitive, and the ideas fizzled away. It's not a disgrace. Prime ministers have to try out new ideas, but I wonder whether the opening thrust will end up being the thrust of her government.
And your column this week was devoted to Philip Hammond, the new Chancellor of the Exchequer. What's your quick take?
Just that this is a big event. Control of economic policy changes very rarely. George Osborne controlled conservative economics since 2005. Gordon Brown did it really for Labour between 1992 and 2007. So these openings are rare. Philip Hammond's appointment is a much bigger opportunity for him and potentially a much bigger change in the direction of the country than anyone realises so far.
But signs that the Treasury is being a bit cut down to size, perhaps?
Well, I think it'll still play a big role when it comes to Europe and specifically protecting the City of London in those negotiations. But this new department intrigues me, business and industrial strategy headed by Greg Clark. I wonder how the Treasury, which is traditionally sceptical about industrial strategy because of our experience in the 70s, feels about that.
And finally, Theresa May has said she won't curtail the length of the government in Parliament. She'll serve till 2020. I mean, some people think that she might serve even longer given the state of the Labour Party.
I mean, they're having their second leadership contest in 10 months. Jeremy Corbyn, the left-wing leader, versus a man called Owen Smith, Many people won't have heard of him, but he's a sort of soft left figure, quite a good performer as a politician. I look at it and just wonder, isn't it a choice between someone who will definitely lose massively in 2020, Jeremy Corbyn, and someone who will lose a bit less badly in 2020 in Owen Smith? It's not a great choice, and it leaves Theresa May in a pretty spectacular position.
Jinan Ganesh, thank you so much.
Thank you.